Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Artists in Sight, where we spotlight some of the best visual artists in the Kansas City metro area. My name is Brian Vole, and I'm the local arts librarian for Johnson County Library. Our mission for Artists in Sight is to share conversations with artists about their work, their background, and what inspires them. Artists in Sight is an extension of Johnson County Library's exhibitions program, which brings the work of the best local visual artists to the walls and spaces of Johnson County Library art galleries. Our new season of local art at the library began with the new year and will run until April 21st. Check our web page for complete information about who's showing where and for interviews with all of our artists at jocolibrary.org/events/exhibitions. Our guest today is Lorrie Boydston. Lorrie is an American painter from the Midwest, based in Kansas City, Missouri. She specializes in suburban theme artworks, ranging from representational scenes of suburban landscapes and architecture to abstract mixed media works. Her artwork has been exhibited locally and nationally, in addition to a variety of publications where her artwork has been featured. Boydston is an active member of the Kansas City Artists Coalition, where she is also a studio resident, as well as Arts KC's now showing corporate exhibit program, and was a delegate for Artists Inc. KC in 2019. You can catch Lorrie Boydston's artwork on display at the Blue Valley Library now until April 21st. And Lorrie does come to us from our partnership with the Kansas City Artists Coalition. All of the artists showing at Blue Valley Library and the Oak Park Library are come from their association with the Artists Coalition. So we're lucky to have Lorrie Boydston. Welcome, Lorrie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being part of Artists in Sight. We're really lucky to have you and to talk about your work. So I think a good first question for you is, for those who haven't yet seen the artwork on display at Blue Valley Library, describe for us what they can expect to see.
I have a mix of my works on paper, some of the newest works on paper that I've done, and some of my mixed media book cover series, which are found objects and acrylic paint on repurposed book covers. The works on paper are mostly abstract. I have a few like of my house motif style mixed in there. Also some kind of collages and just different watercolor. A few of them are acrylic. So it's kind of a mix of media, but all kind of the same theme. I do have a couple bodies of work that I exhibit, but here at this particular exhibit, I'm able to kind of focus on my works on paper, which I was happy to do because I haven't had them kind of all in one place like this before in a while with an exhibit where I could put them all together. So I kind of like being able to do that this time.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the different aspects of your work. So on one hand, you have these representational depictions of suburban life filled with lawns, children, and houses. And then on the other hand, you have more abstract works that are more open to interpretation. So some of your paintings combine these two elements. So what can you tell us about these aspects of your work?
Well, I've really developed two bodies of work along the same subject matter over the last, say, 15 years or so as a professional artist here. I did kind of start out with almost all representational work, working from photos, had scenes from just suburban life, children at play, water was a common theme. And I did a lot of work, just direct observation and try to find those really great little fleeting moments that I could capture with a camera, and then choose what then to paint and interpret through a painting. As I was doing that, the the abstract work kind of evolved from that, because I started to become interested in the formal qualities that I was seeing, all of the repetition, the colors, the architecture being kind of all the same in suburban neighborhoods, and just was seeing all those same shapes, lines, and colors over and over again. And so I started to just wonder if there was a way I could sort of reduce it down and simplify it a little bit and just explore just that. And it wasn't until I found a piece of, it was a landscape mesh, because I was always scouring around as I did walks around the neighborhood and stuff, and kind of found little objects to started to find ways to incorporate those. But it wasn't until I found some of that landscape mesh that goes underneath sod, when they put in new sod at a new construction site or whatever. I found some of that and just took it home and had it in my studio and was messing around trying to figure out what to do with it. And I laid it out on some of the plexiglass that I paint on, and was intrigued by just, the order and the structure. And I started painting inside the little rectangles, and, kind of got it all glued down on there and just started painting in there. And I really loved that the process and the physical aspect of painting inside all of those little rectangles kind of mimicked the same repetition, and even the color palette that I was using and all of that. It sort of felt the same as the space I was studying and using in my work. So it sort of made sense to me. It just took that form. And from there, it took off to, incorporating all of the objects that I found, and that connected the environment a little bit. So to me, the abstract is very much the same as the representational, either to look at them. And if you didn't know that necessarily about it, it wouldn't be as obvious. But I like that the abstract works become more of an object in and of themselves. Whereas, there's a scene depicted in a representational work, it's just going to be what it is, what you see. It's, more realistic, more about the light and kind of the color and just the almost benign aspect of what you're seeing there. I don't typically go indoors with scenes. I stay in the outs, architecture and the landscape of it. So those two bodies of work have kind of just continued to evolve. The abstract I tend to show a little more lately. It has seems like it has a little more of even a wider appeal audience, just because I paint on a clear surface too, and I think people like the fact that the color that I use kind of has this clear area and it kind of reflects whatever's around it. Had a lot of good responses to that, so it's kind of fun to play around with that. But that's how my two bodies of work sort of came about, and I continue to work on both a little bit.
That's really interesting what you said about the mesh, the sod mesh. And seeing some of those some of those paintings that you did that combine those geometric shapes with the scenes of the kids playing on the lawn, that was very interesting to me, how you combine those two. So take us deeper into your creative process here, Lorrie. How often are you painting, and what kind of work goes into preparation for a painting?
Well, I do spend a lot of time journaling, sketching, and taking a lot of photos still, even though I don't work necessarily directly from photos all the time now. I find that just taking pictures of something helps me kind of remember the feel of the space. I can be inspired then by just the composition a little bit, even kind of the minimalistic qualities that I'm able to capture sometimes in the photos. I like to collect objects. I find I'm really one of those people that just see something shiny on the ground and I pick it up no matter what it is. And I find all kinds of really random things. Sometimes they're really great things that I want to use. And I do my little tiny 4x4 pieces. I use a lot of objects in those, and those book cover series, I've used a lot in those. So journaling, sketching, taking photos, finding objects. And then when I actually get ready to kind of do a bigger work or a more, substantial piece, I find myself kind of working through like, what's the size of this grid going to be? And is it inspired by the actual object that I found? Sometimes it is. Sometimes the object dictates like how the grid is going to be worked out, or is it going to be a combination of things that I find. I incorporate the little house motif sometimes so that it mimics that repetition and the roof lines and all of that. And then sometimes there's just no representational thing at all. So I find it takes me a long time to build up the layers in a lot of my acrylic paintings. I probably work several, 3 nights a week. I work full time too as a teacher. So I probably work 3 nights a week in the studio, and then for sure the weekends, good chunks of time on Saturday and Sunday. I'm really blessed to have my weekends usually to work. So by the time I start a painting and do all the layers it takes and kind of feel like it's done, a larger work probably takes about 3 or 4 weeks, even at that rate, but I'm kind of one that'll have this little station of the acrylic started, and then I might have a work on paper going on over here, and I'll have another little, item that I'm working on. So I kind of hop around, and that's kind of the way I've always worked. So they just take a while to execute sometimes, and I keep coming back to them and saying, okay, no, this isn't ready. I think it's when I walk away, leave for a little while, come back, and it sort of takes your breath away when you realize, okay, that's done. That's it. I better not touch it anymore. So.
You mentioned the book cover series, and we have some examples of those here. And so what can you tell us about that series? What interested you in wanting to paint these book covers?
Okay, that's a fun story in a way because, well, I've been an art teacher for a long, long time now. And between all the different schools I've worked at, the libraries, always go through and eventually have books that they need to just discard. They kind of don't want to toss them away necessarily in the trash. So they kind of offer them up to whoever wants them. And some of them are, just multiples of a series or something that they can't do much with at a school or whatever. So I just started saving them. Wasn't sure what to do with them at first. And I decided, well, these are kind of a nice little surface, and I don't know, maybe, I could try starting to paint on them. I started slicing some up, because it was like, oh, they're going in the trash. I'm going to recycle them. I don't want to just recycle the insides and kept the covers. So I started painting on them, and they were just the great little size, and they kind of reminded me of little doors. And so I started thinking, well, doors and like windows, that idea that kind of represents the looking in or entering into a home, but yet we're looking out from a window. So I have this whole series that are all like little doors or windows, or they have some object introduced in them. I call them all little windows. To me, that's kind of what they are and they feel like. So that's how that got started. I have piles of them, and I've given some away to other artists that I know have done things with them. And I'll do something with some of the insides at times too, but I don't know. I just couldn't see them, nothing is safe when you're an artist and you have things sitting around in piles. could become anything. Yeah.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but what can you tell us about the biggest challenge or challenges for you creatively?
For me, always it seems like in the back of my mind, I'm always the most concerned or challenged by time. I think as an artist, I think of time as like a gift almost, like when I can get a little time to feel like I can just do my thing, my creativity at my pace, when I feel it there and I want to go and work. And sometimes, life doesn't let you have that moment or give you as much time as you want. And I feel like time is always the thing I'm begging for and praying for more of. There's always pressure to do other things, I mean, my kids are grown now, but I remember starting out as a professional artist, trying to like raise kids and still make time. And it felt like it was my time, but yet I was compelled. I had to do it. One way or another, you find a way. You lose sleep, or you push something else aside in order to do it. So I think that's my biggest challenge, creatively, just making more
You
time.
mentioned that you're a teacher, and how has being a teacher affected your art or vice versa?
So I think my teaching and my career has probably affected my art in some way, mostly because I live and work almost in the same basic area. I even grew up in the same area pretty much. Went to school, lived and worked all in the same basic neighborhood. So it's like I'm never really in another setting, and I'm inspired by just just kind of all of the life that surrounds me and this lifestyle, but yet um, kind of how everybody thinks of it and lives with it and how everybody else might perceive it. So let's talk about, full submersion, I guess, is what I think about. And vice versa, though, my professional art career also influences my teaching, because it's nice to be really part of the professional art community here in the metropolitan Kansas City area, and kind of be able to talk about that to kids and explain, the process of being an artist and how what you go through, and share some of bits and pieces of what I do with them. And they sort of get that, oh, it is a process. And I think that's what I'm mostly able to convey to them, that you can't just, these things don't just happen accidentally. I mean, you really do have, it's like the work of art that you have to teach them about, not just the formal training part of it. Yeah. So they goes both
Sure.
ways.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And what I want to ask you about now is you provided some books that you've recommended in our other interview with you on our exhibitions blog. And I was wondering if you could say a few words about any of these, or all of these, and um, what you found interesting about these books, and what's inspired you about them.
And you have, I see that you have 9th Street Woman there, and you have, do you have the other? I think there was two
Einstein's
more.
Dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Einstein's Dreams first, in a way, because that one was a really profound read for me. It seems like a simple thing, and it's, kind of based on the theory of time and all the different ways you can think about time. And I mentioned time before, how that's one of my biggest creative challenges. And I think what was so fun about this book is just to put yourself in a whole nother, like, it gives these little vignettes of time scenarios. What is the rules of this particular universe and about their time, and then how it all connects through. And it just was a really fun way to sort of like try to lighten up and let go about time in a way, because it really is kind of a relative thing. And so even though that is the one challenge I have, I really enjoyed how this was written. And it was just sort of a playful way to look at time. So I'll start with that one, because it's a pretty quick read, and um, just kind of, I don't know, it was heavy at times, and,
Yeah.
philosophical at times. And but it just was poetic, and I love the way it was written.
Yeah, I remember reading that one years ago, and every chapter is a different story, different, like you just said, a different way to consider time. And yeah, it really does force you to step back and rethink our preconceptions of
Well,
what
that's
what
really
time is.
what control we do have over our time, a little more than we probably think we do, or, and we can't change the ticking of the clock necessarily, but the way you use time or the way you think about it, we definitely have some control over. So that I just need to
Yeah.
stay more positive about that. Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about any of these books?
No, I find Ninth Street Women one that I can dive into and I kind of learn, like I feel like I'm learning so much as I'm reading it. It's like I love the way it's just a parallel history of the world, through the eyes of these artists, and it's really great to just be able to dive back in and reread, pieces of it even with different artists. So I've been fascinated. It's really really well done, and I think anybody that's an artist almost needs to read it, no matter what kind of artist or where you come from. It's just a really great way to learn about that different eras as they pass through them through time.
It's funny that as you talk about when you talked about Einstein's dreams, um, the other question I wanted to ask you had to do with what you have stated before as living in the Midwest suburban upbringing has given you a unique perspective within this American subculture that provides a wide range of topics to explore, including environment, architecture, daily routines or rituals, as I refer to them, spirituality, ideas of home, cultural diversity, and time. So I wonder if there's anything else that you want to add about how all of these different concepts figure into your work. And that's, I know, a big question.
It is, and it's hard to kind of know where to begin talking about that because there's so many, in a way, I mean, depending on how you want to look at my work, there's different things that you could get from it, or even sometimes just the way that I go about thinking about a piece that I'm gonna do. Sometimes it's more environmental, like this one is going to be a more statement about the environment, like we're tearing down, trees, building houses and on fields and calling them after the land that they took over to, the little subdivisions. It's just hysterical kind of how it all comes about, and everything's named after whatever used to be there that's no longer there. It's all these houses now. And I find that kind of, it's ironic, and yet it's interesting, and that our social aspect of us that wants this little newness of these houses all the time in this little pristine area that we feel safe in and secure. It's sort of a stability thing, I guess. And I'm right there with it because that's where, I raised my kids there. I grew up there. It's kind of where something we seek. And I find that I'm just examining it a little bit. It's still an optimistic view that I have, but yet there are some issues, that I don't want to pretend aren't there, like the environmental issues, sometimes even political issues. When I talk about diversity, I say that from the outside looking in, it looks like, okay, it's every fourth house is the same. It's really all the same. But that there's all these different stories behind all those doors, which is kind of where the book series and the book cover thing comes in, with the doors and the windows. There's like a little story behind each door, and there's different everything. There's different, it's racial, it's religious, it's all these different cultural things that just aren't loudly being expressed there. They're just there. So I like that it suggests that. And my work it's not obvious, a slap in the face about it, but it's sort of there, and it's talking about it in a lot of different ways. So when those themes that I talk about, everything from spirituality to environment and time and all of those themes, they're sort of like layers of meaning that are just happening in my work in one form or another. Sometimes it's just a literal thing that's an object, or sometimes it's the scene, and sometimes it's just the inspiration for the work. And that doesn't answer the question very directly.
No, it does. Yeah, that's a really good answer to a tough question. So I thank you for giving that perspective into your art. And I'm going to put here a slide with your contact information. And Lorrie, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you. And if you'd like to learn more about Lorrie Boydston and her work, you can visit her website, lorrieboydston.com, and she is on Instagram as well at
Yes.
Lorrie Boydston Fine Art. And you can definitely see more of her range of work on her website. And for more information on Johnson County Library programs and services, please visit jocolibrary.org. Thank you so much, Lorrie, for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.